Hey everyone, so I'm back again for part two, talking about biblical eons, where here I want to kind of just touch again on what is a biblical eon, where I've already talked about this in my video, The Then Cosmos. So basically, what we have to understand is that the Word of God reveals a biblical representation of a threefold heavens and earthland, which is outlined here in 2 Peter. So the heavens that is out of old, called the then cosmos, is one eon. And then the heavens and the earth now present is yet another eon, where then when we jump down to verse 13, we see the mention of the new heavens and a new earth, which will be yet another eon. Where I'm convinced that the day of the eon here that the writer is mentioning is that eon, the first day of that eon, when everything will be completed. And again, as I talked about in the then cosmos, before part one, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 is that eon of the then cosmos, of the heavens and the earth out of old, which became this. And then verse 3 is the present heavens and earth, which is yet another eon. So this is eon 1, this is eon 2, and then, of course, when we enter into a new heavens and earth, that's eon 3. So this is the threefold representation of the heavens and earth, all outlined in 2 Peter chapter 3. So here in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2, the eon of this same cosmos is the now cosmos. The heavens now present and the earthland, in contrast to the then cosmos, heavens out of old. The now present eon, 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 9, which Demas loved. Also seen here in Titus chapter 2, verse 12. Chastising us that, denying dishonoring and cosmic desires, we will live reasonably and righteously and well-honoringly in this now present eon, which is an evil eon. Galatians chapter 1, verse 4, where, again, we also see this phrase, the eon, with a definite article in all of these verses, which you can make a note of and examine yourself if you so desire. Or then finally, we also see the expression, this same eon, Ephesians 1:21, which, remember, Genesis 1:3 is the origin of this eon, which we are still in now. So this is from the eon, which we find in these three verses, looking back, where when we find the preposition ice prefixing the word eon, of course, this then looks future, into the eon, which is found in 27 verses here, where I'd love to go through all of them, which I have personally, but I'm just trying to outline all of the contexts here of eons. So we got from the eon looks back, into the eon is looking forward, where we actually have other occurrences looking forward too. Here in John 13:8, we find toward the eon, which I believe this is ice as well, where the others are translated into toward. We're then pointing to the very end of this eon, we have this expression altogether finishing, which is one word with the hyphen, of the eon, found in the parable of Matthew 13 and Matthew 24:3 and Matthew 28:20, where we also have a plural occurrence. Altogether finishing of the eons, which I'm going to talk about the plural occurrences of eons in another part, which would include both eons, the then cosmos and the present cosmos. Because remember, they have taken stand together, as I talked about in my video, the then cosmos. And then here in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 8, we find the expression, the eon of the eon, quoting Psalms 45:7, which I'm going to talk more about in other parts, which concerns the testifying time, or the last 3.5 years of this present eon, which is post-rapture. We're then in Jude verse 25, the before all of the eon and now. And now was, of course, that present time looking future into the conclusion of this eon, and then, of course, and into the eons, is future eons, new heavens and earth and beyond. And then the future heavens and earth eon, we see the expression eon about to come in these verses. And then we see the coming, the eon with the definite article. Mark 10:30, Luke 18:30, which is the new heavens and earth, eon. Where then the singular eon here in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 21 is the present eon at the conclusion of the future eons, the eon of the eons. Where we also have the eons plural of the eons plural, which I'm going to talk more about in the next part, where I want to examine all of the plural occurrences of eons, where in this video I've pretty much exhausted all of the singular occurrences. And here's a quick glance at my notes, where also note that some of the occurrences of the singular eon in the Greek is referring to the Old Testament noun ad, which defines a testifying time, namely these 4 verses. So, for example, in 2 Corinthians 9:9, Paul is quoting Psalms 112:9. According as it is written, he dispersed, he gave to the starving ones, his righteousness abides into the eon, where if you look at the verse in the Hebrew text, it's testifying time, which is actually very different from the concept of the eon as a whole of the present heavens and earth. The testifying time is basically the judgment of Israel in the third watch time after the so-called rapture. So from midnight into the conclusion of the sign given Peter, here's my chart, from midnight to the cock-a-doodle-doo, this is the testifying time, when all Israel will be saved into the completion, where then the judgment of the cursed is here. So this is the testifying time, which I'm going to talk much more about in a later part. Or let me add that if you were to attempt to put this together using any other Bible translations, you would have your work cut out for you, because you would have to go into the lexicons and look up all of these prepositions and try to figure it out, where the Devar has fixed all of this, which has made it easier. I still spent 80 hours the past 2 weeks putting all this together. And I'm not bragging, I'm just saying that's the fact. But it was easy work, because I can search the Devar translation and find these phrases. So if you want to accurately understand the Word of God, I highly recommend getting the Devar Bible translation. Search up this video 090 on my account here on how you can access the free files. Here's a little information about it. We're in a comment. Right here I put the link with the passcode to a file share site called HiDrive, where you can download the installation files for Mac, PC, and Android. Thanks for watching, sharing, and liking. God bless.